everyone out there who needs help, who needs healing, is like a sick goldfish. What's up, you guys? David here from the Plant Medicine for PTSD podcast, here to talk to you again about basically the same thing I'm really always talking about, which is integration from plant medicine. Because I talk about integration basically every single time I talk, and so I figured it's good to take a minute and explain what I even mean by that. What is integration? What is this thing that I keep referencing and referring to? And by the way, before we dive into all that, if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, like this video. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, go ahead and leave a rating or a review. It goes a long way for helping somebody else find this who could use this information. So what is integration? It's going to be a bit anticlimactic, but I really can't just describe it or define it very easily, because integration looks a little bit different for each person. And if you haven't yet experienced a large dose of mushrooms or ibogaine or ayahuasca or LSD or mescaline or whatever else out there, then it can be hard to conceptualize this. So I'm going to give you an analogy. And if you ever work with us, you're going to come to appreciate that I use so many different analogies all the time, and I just keep taking them further until they lose all meaning. So you may have already heard me talking about this, but I like to think about integration as if we are a sick goldfish. Everyone out there who needs help, who needs healing, is like a sick goldfish. When you have a sick goldfish, you can take it to the vet, and you can give it some medicine. You can take it out of its tank, put it in a little plastic bag, carry it over to the veterinarian, and they maybe give it a dose of antibiotics or what have you. That is like taking yourself out of your home environment, getting on a plane, flying to Tijuana or Costa Rica or Peru, and going to a retreat. You're taking yourself out of your natural habitat, going someplace else to get some treatment. And that can be great. That might be exactly what you need, or exactly what that sick goldfish needs. But now what happens when you take that now treated goldfish and you take it back home and you plop it right back into its dirty ass tank that made it sick in the first place? That's a little bit like what happens when you go to a retreat and you come back home and you do absolutely nothing different. You have given the goldfish medicine and put it right back in the dirty tank that made it sick to begin with. So what does that actually mean for us? It means that we have to clean our own fish tank. It's honestly not that different actually than if you went to the doctor and they're like, yeah, hey, here we can give you some medication, and also you need to do XYZ thing to change your lifestyle. Like, yeah, here's some metformin, or here's some insulin for your diabetes, but hey, let's clean up your diet and let's start exercising. And you could actually get to a point where you don't need that medication anymore if you just make those changes. This is actually pretty similar, and this is what we focus on in our mindful microdosing program, is cleaning up that fish tank, if you will, or making those changes in your own lifestyle, in your environments, in your relationships, in your communication, in your thinking, in your habits, so that you don't even necessarily need that big dose of medicine in the first place. Now, of course, this can fit into the picture all kinds of different ways. We can use the program to prepare for the medicine. We can integrate after, or it can be a standalone. Just like if you have diabetes, you can start exercising at any point and it's going to help you. And maybe you don't even need the medication if you take that seriously enough, or you can use it to complement whatever drugs the doctor's giving you. But again, the idea remains, integration is all about cleaning your own goldfish tank, so to speak. Now, as it pertains to integration after a larger experience, most of the time the medicine is going to show you all kinds of shit. It's going to show you things that are out of alignment in your life, things that maybe you need to let go of, whether that's your job or your physical location or toxic relationships or family members, things from your past that you're holding on to. It might show you some mistakes that you've been making, where you've kind of been fucking up, maybe areas where you have been the asshole and you have been the problem. And it's probably going to show you some changes that you want to make going forward, maybe some commitments that you want to make. So the question becomes, what do I do about all of those things? Am I just going to ignore the messages from the medicine and go right back to the old ways of behavior? Or even if I am going to act differently myself, if I'm going to take those things seriously, what else needs to change about my environment or the people in my life so that they don't end up dragging me back down to the place that I started at? All right, so speaking practically, what could this actually look like? Again, it is going to be different for each person, but on a tangible level, the way that I look at this stuff is that we as humans are creatures of habit. So the biggest thing is going to be changing our actual habits, but how do we do that? We've all probably tried. We all have had New Year's resolutions that have failed after a week. So I think the biggest driver of our habits is actually our environment. So this is literally where we start with all of our clients. We take a good hard look at their lifestyle, and then we figure out what things in their environment are driving those choices. Because I think it's always going to be more effective to try to re-engineer your environment to set you up for success than it's going to be to just rely on discipline and willpower, right? So if I want to stop eating junk food, the easiest thing is to just get rid of all the junk food in my house and not allow any more, because I'm a fucking fat kid on the inside and I will eat the cookies if they're in front of me. So my solution is just not have cookies in the house, which gets tough when my Austrian wife goes into Christmas mode and bakes 1,000 cookies and I eat all of them. So for our context, that means looking at like literally very basic things like, where's my phone in the morning? Can I use some app blockers so I'm less likely to scroll? Can I make sure that my journal is like front and center on my desk so I'm more likely to grab it? Like there are some very basic things like that that we can actually start with. And then looking at our social environment as well. So what kinds of people are we hanging around with? What's our friend group talking about? What are they orienting themselves towards? Because effective integration after psychedelics is probably going to involve a restructuring of your relationships. Ideally, it involves a new community for you to be a part of, where people are striving in the same direction and you are being uplifted by them and contributing to uplift other people. And that's exactly what we have built inside of our community with all the folks who've graduated from our program or gone on retreat with us. There's a reason why people stick around in there for like 4 years for some of these people, because that community factor is extremely important in maintaining all of these changes that we are trying to make. And then the other element to this that I think gets overlooked quite a bit is the diet, if you will, your spiritual diet or your emotional diet. Like, what are you putting into your ears and into your eyes? What are you consuming in terms of the media that you are watching? This is a big thing that comes up in preparation for ayahuasca, is literally the dieta. So, not eating meat, not eating certain other foods that, would interfere with the medicine. Ideally, if you're doing preparation right, there should also be a diet from social media, from news, from politics, things like that. But again, very often, people feel great when they cut that stuff out, they go to their retreat, and then they go right back to the old ways of being. And honestly, I'm guilty of this too, to some degree. So we got to ask ourselves, like, literally, what am I watching? What am I looking at on Instagram? What am I listening to? Even if it's something benign like podcasts. Am I listening to, I've been watching a lot of Kill Tony lately. So am I just like watching comedy to fill this empty space? Like, should I actually just be washing dishes in silence and sitting with myself? Sometimes I watch comedy, you guys. I'm not perfect. So the idea being, though, look at what elements are affecting you, what things are influencing you, what's going into your ears and your eyes, what is your friend group talking about, and how is your environment set up, because that is going to shape the choices that you make. And a lot of times it is more about what we are cutting out than what we are adding in. It's great to add practices like meditation, journaling, yoga, sound healing, fucking coloring books, I don't know. Whatever makes you feel grounded and connected. It's good to have that. But I think in our modern world that is so driven by distractions, by being constantly reachable, this expectation that you're supposed to have an opinion on every single bad thing that ever happens anywhere around the world, a lot of times cultivating this inner peace comes more from cutting things out than from adding new things in. And really what this is all about, the whole integration process, the whole healing process, really, this is going to sound dumb because of how simple it is, but if you imagine the healed version of you. You imagine your highest self, if you want to call it that. You can literally just ask the question, what does that guy do every day? Or what is that lady up to? What time do they wake up? What are they doing in the morning? What's their morning routine? That ideal version of yourself, how are they spending their time? How are they structuring their day? What are they listening to? How are they responding when they're challenged? How are they communicating with their loved ones or their children? How are they handling themselves at work? What are they eating? All of those very basic things. Just imagine this this version of myself that I'm trying to become. What's that guy doing? And then can I just start doing that right now? Like, it actually kind of is that simple. I think this is how manifestation works, not to get all fucking woo-woo, but it's literally like, what do I want to be? How can I just be that right now? Now, obviously, that is very simple, but it is not easy, or else we would all be healed by now. There's a whole system that goes into this inside of our program, and I actually want to talk a lot more about how we approach habit change and why affirmations are perhaps the biggest part of that, and I think where a lot of people go wrong with affirmations. But just to give you an idea of what I mean when I use the term integration, it kind of encompasses all of this. It's like changing your habits and your behaviors, changing the people that you hang out with, because that's changing the influences on your mind, and then cutting out a lot of the distractions at best or outrage at worst that we are consuming from our phones. Those are some kind of core principles of integration. And then beyond that, we're essentially trying to implement or enact all of the lessons of the medicine. We're trying to become that person that the medicine has given us glimpses of. And it really is quite simple. Like, who's that person? What are they doing? And let me just do that today. Can I just do that today? Is there any good reason that I can't just be that guy? Most of the time, the reason is it's really fucking hard to bridge that gap when the person that we're trying to become seems so fucking far off in the distance. And insidiously, a lot of times there's a whole litany of reasons why we actually don't want to be that person. It's like we want to be that guy, but we're actually scared of what that would entail, or we know how uncomfortable it's going to be, or we're more attached to this version of ourselves that actually has to die in order to become that next version of ourselves. All things that Stephen Pressfield would call capital R resistance. I'm going to do a whole fucking series on Stephen Pressfield, because books like this one right here, Turning Pro, have been such a huge influence on my life and the lives of all of our clients. So all of that is to come in the future, but for right now, just a little bit more information of what I mean when I use the term integration. So hopefully that didn't leave you more confused than you started. I'm going to stop right there before I ramble even more. I think next up, I'm going to give you a little look under the hood inside of our program and how we approach integration, specifically in the context of microdosing, some of the systems that we have in place, the reason that our program is structured the way that it's structured, because there is a whole lot of thought behind that, and it has organically evolved over time as we've put more than 200 people through it over the course of several years. So we'll get into that. We'll talk a little bit more about shadow work and how that plays into things. I just said I'm going to stop rambling, so I'll truly stop rambling now. Thank you for watching this video. Until next time, peace out.